Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us today for our webinar, How to Chart the Course for Your Travel Campaigns. My name is Arda Çalan, and I'm part of the marketing team here at StackAdapt. Before getting started, we have some housekeeping items to cover, and then we can get the webinar underway. We're happy to field any questions you might have on any of the content. Please feel free to place them in the questions area of the GoToWebinar panel. We'll address all the questions at the end of our session during the Q&A. If there are any questions we are not able to address in the allotted time, we'll follow up directly after the webinar. Just a quick note, this webinar is being recorded and will be shared shortly after we end. And with that, I would like to hand it over our presenters, Kane and Lily, to get us started.
Thank you very much, Arda. Hello, everybody. So just a quick introduction to myself and Lily. I'm Kane. I'm a sales manager here at StackAdapt. I'm primarily working with travel and B2B clients here. Although I've only been at StackAdapt for 7 months, I have over 8 years of experience in the marketing space, previously coming from agency side. During that time, I've worked with a number of sort of high-profile clients that include IBM, Dell, Cisco, some other names like that. Main thing for me is trying to build marketing campaigns that are both creative, but also offer really deep audience insights so that you can kind of go forward and keep improving performance and learning new things as you go.
Hi everyone, I'm Lily. I'm a sales manager in the UK here at StackAdapt. I joined last year and I come from a media background. I've worked in content marketing, digital advertising, and now ad tech. I've worked with agencies and B2B businesses for over 12 years, and I'm super excited to be presenting to you today. So just a little bit of a background on StackAdapt. We're a self-serve programmatic platform, and we offer a holistic solution to your advertising needs, from planning, strategy, execution, reporting, to in-house creative building, market research, and much, much more. And on that note, Kane, let's move on to the agenda.
Cool, thanks, Lily. So we're covering a couple of different topics throughout the course of this webinar. The first one will be looking at the travel market itself. So just looking at what kind of trends are we seeing, particularly for the EMEA market? How do we anticipate kind of consumer behavior changing over the course of this year? We'll then move on to, off the back of that insights, what kind of audiences are there available online for you to target in order to kind of get the most from your campaigns? And then thirdly, we'll look at measuring the performance of those campaigns. There are some travel specific reporting and insight solutions that we have that we'd love to cover. And then we'll have a little bit of a wrap up, and then we'll jump to a Q&A as well, where we'll ask some of the questions that you've put in the chat on the right. So the first thing we're going to cover is travel trends on the rise. That's yours, Lily, so I'll hand back over to you.
Perfect, thanks, Kane. So yeah, we're going to start off by looking at the trends. We're going to start here with a quote from the CEO at Avivo. We've seen a surge in bookings in many of our most luxurious properties across Europe. Travelers are ready to treat themselves no matter the cost. Now, the first trend that stands out straight away is that people are in the mood to spend a little and they see travel as a treat that they would like to indulge in. So here we're going to start off by looking at the hottest destinations, and really exciting to see that Europe's actually seen as the hottest destination to travel to. Bar Dubai and New York, every city in the top 10 is in Europe, and Paris taking #1. So now let's look at the growth and what the trend is here. So as you can see on the right, there is a healthy uptick in the digital ad spend. The travel industry growth is continuing through 2024. Europe will strengthen its leading position with 55% market share in 2024, which is 4% higher than before the crisis. In the UK alone, over 15 million airline passengers are expected to arrive in London in the next 90 days. With a rise in travellers, this is 36% increase from North America, set to surpass COVID-19 levels according to RateGain. So as you can see, really healthy numbers, and we're seeing a nice uptick. So we've already established travellers are keen to treat themselves, and a natural progression of this sentiment is that people are spending more on travel. Now, this will be particularly informative for all of you listening that work in travel advertising. The total tourist spend projected globally is 1.3 trillion euros in 2023. 43% plan to spend more lavishly to make up for missed travel opportunities due to the crisis of 2020. I think that's quite interesting, especially as we all saw there was a lot of apprehension around travel in the last couple of years. 3,500 euros is the average travel budget. 72% say that traveling will always be worth it, even amid economic instability. Many travelers are ready to go big and are seeking new experiences with their travel plans. This also suggests that there is a growing audience interested in new destinations at higher price points. So another emerging trend that we're seeing is that technology is really shaping the future of travel. 43% of global travelers report that they will be returning to tech to inspire their 2023 holiday choices, with 46% saying they're more likely to travel to destinations that they wouldn't have previously considered after experiencing them virtually. So there's definitely something to say for being able to tap into audiences that way. The metaverse offers enormous potential for pre-trip assistance and the opportunity to sort of try before you buy, creating further wanderlust and excitement. This will be increasingly popular as a way to trial higher priced items, which I think is very interesting, especially for some of the luxury advertisers out there. So it's no secret that travelers are craving new experiences. Here are 4 interesting trends that we've observed and would like to share with you. Nearly 3/4 are looking forward to experiencing out of the comfort zone travel that pushes them to their limits. 50% of global travelers want to experience complete culture shock in 2023. Meditation and mindfulness getaways are ever popular with global travelers at 44%. Camouflage cabins, campfires, cuisines, compasses, going off grid will never be more sought after than in 2023. You know, we live in a very plugged in community, and I think it sounds like a lot of people are looking to go somewhere and just unplug and connect with the environment. So here you can see booking behavior by age group. So if you're an online travel agency, you can see that 2 groups will stand out to you here, 35 to 44 and 45 to 54. And perhaps it makes sense to plug quite a bit of budget behind these 2 age groups as they are going to be your target audience. Whereas if you're a high street or a tour operator, you're more popular with the 65 and over group. So perhaps it makes sense for you to cater to them. Now over to Kane to take you through traveller audiences.
Awesome, thank you very much, Lily. So yeah, we have a whole suite of audiences in-house that are available, as well as some external data providers as well. But before we delve into those, I think it's really important to examine the travel funnel as a whole. There are 3 stages to any buying process in the travel space. I'm sure a lot of you will be familiar with this. The first stage is the research stage. That's early research into a particular destination or a range of destinations to sort of identify where they want to go. Once they have a destination in mind, they generally will move on to the planning phase. This is when consumers are looking at things like travel, accommodation, and the main logistics that are going to get them to that particular location. They may also start looking at activities at this stage too. The final stage is then booking. No surprise here, that involves booking flights, booking accommodation. It can involve booking activities, or it could involve more heavy research into those activities, which can even extend into travel, as we'll cover in a short moment. There are 3 goals generally with any travel marketing campaign, and they align pretty well with the 3 stages on the right. The first will be trying to reach the right travelers. This is your engagement campaign, I guess, or your awareness campaign, designed to drive awareness about your destinations, about your hotel chain, about your particular activity. Depending on where you are, if you're marketing an activity, for example, you may actually be doing this in the middle phase, but usually that aligns with the research stage. Nurturing is then where we look to drive and nurture actual consideration. So rather than just being top of mind, we want to be the first one they think of when they go to purchase. That aligns really well with the planning phase, where you can start to see people looking for hotels in a particular location, for example. The final phase is then conversion. No surprise here, I think performance marketing campaigns are what most of us are tasked with. That is getting people to actually book those travel plans and activities. While that lines up really well with the booking stage, it can also extend into the stage where people are actively traveling to a location, depending on what it is that you're promoting. You can see in the bottom left a selection of the different audiences that we have available. We've got contextual targeting, intent, behavior, travel and traveler type, traveler value, and then AI traveler targeting as well. I'll be delving into all of those in a little bit more detail in a moment, but I just wanted to look quickly at the challenges and solutions at each stage. At the inspiration stage on the left, the challenge here really is to inspire travel. It's to build the kind of preconceptions that an audience have about the particular event or destination that you are promoting and keeping you top of mind. Here, we would advise using custom segments to target people who are looking for inspirational content. A lot of people will start searching for top 10 nature getaway locations, for example. This is when you want to be getting in front of those individuals. As we move towards the research and discovery stage, the challenge is more to engage in-market travelers. So not people at the top end of research, but people who have started to settle down on plans and dates. Here, custom segments looking for people who are identifying flights, accommodations could be really useful to get in front of people a little bit further down that funnel. The booking stage challenge is to drive travelers to book or purchase, and this is where creative tactics can become really important. We have dynamic retargeting, for example, which can build custom creatives automatically that reflect the research that those clients have done, a really good way to create high intent purchases. And then the final part is while people are traveling. The challenge here is to find people who are already in transit and to try and upsell and to kind of get a response from them. Here we have a number of solutions, but I would definitely recommend using IP targeting or using geo-radius and location targeting to be able to reach individuals who are in transit or who are actually at the location to get them to kind of complete those last-minute purchases for events and attractions. Now, the first type of audience we're going to look at is travel contextual targeting, which I'll let Lily handle first.
Perfect, thanks, Kane. So here we're going to look at contextual targeting and how it lends itself beautifully to travel. Page Context AI is StackAdapt's proprietary cookieless targeting solution. As you can see an example on the right here, using in-context phrases and out-of-context phrases, we can serve an advert in a hyper-relevant environment to a user that's engaged. And will be receptive to that, to your ad. With Page Context AI, target and research users currently engaging with content about specific topics, and again, this allows your ad to really resonate with that mindset. So placing ads in the right context can increase your user engagement by a factor of 4 to 10. Also really good to note here that Page Context AI is available in multiple languages. So we've got it available in English, Spanish, French, Portuguese, German, and also Italian. So to summarize, you can reach audiences without the cookie. You can target niche context, maximize performance, and you can achieve this whilst also getting transparency and real-time feedback as well. So a big channel to use contextual targeting can be digital out of home. So as Kane mentioned earlier, travelers tend to be in transit for a long time. So for example, you might have an Uber promo code that it's on one of the digital out of home advertising screens that has a promo code that the end user can then use. And we can make the assumption that whilst you're traveling, taxis are probably high on your agenda, so you can do lots of cool things there. Also to note that if it's a winter month, you can advertise warmer destinations, and you can sort of incite that wanderlust and that longing for a holiday. But also to add that this can also be done out of digital home as well. Now Kane's going to take us through the intent audiences.
Awesome, thanks, Lily. So yeah, we are partnered with a solution provider called Dara. They offer a number of different audiences to reach in-market travelers particularly. They leverage first-party data from a range of different publishers to create a few audiences. You can see a brief summary of each on the right here. So we have travel intent audiences. These are people who are in market for a target destination based on their behavior within a specific look back window. So that would be based on things like research and their online presence. We then have travel and traveler type. This is where we can segment travelers based on the reason for their travel as well as their profile, and then match that segment with ads for hotels and particular locations. In the top right, we have traveler behavior. This is segmenting and reaching travelers who have particular search behavior, including looking at how they search for things like destinations, hotels, airlines, and things like that. You can also target travelers that kind of exhibit online behaviors that best match your particular offering. So, for example, if you offer a particularly high octane activity like skiing or water sports, for example, we can align that with people who historically have purchased similar types of vacations. The last one we'll look at is traveler value score. This is a composite metric that Adara have built, and it's based on past travel bookings. Essentially, it measures travel frequency, total travel spend, loyalty status, and memberships to evaluate someone and give them a score based on their kind of expected spend. Before I delve into those in too much detail, though, I just wanted to cover off the fact that Adara has a really good global footprint. So I know a lot of the people here will be based in and around Europe. So you'll be glad to see that of the 2.1 billion profiles that they have, over 485 million of those are based in Europe. However, the presence is really strong. No surprises that North America is really strongly represented, APAC then in third, and then rest of world having a strong presence too. Those profiles are made up of over 30 data points each on average, and also contain over 2.5 billion hashed emails to help sync up that data. The data is made up of over 3 billion travel searches annually, so it's a really great kind of constant evolving source of data, and it also includes over 180 million data touch points with regards to air and hotel bookings per year as well. I want to start by looking at traveler segmentation by intent then. So this is targeting people who might be in market for a particular destination. So their online behavior suggests to them that they are ready to visit a particular destination. We then have people who are in market for flights to a particular destination or potentially researching hotels for that particular destination. And then we also just have people who are in market to travel within 30 days. So they are in the research stage, but they haven't settled on a particular location just yet. Behavior is also super interesting. This is based on they have very high consideration for hotels at this stage versus low consideration. And then we have high trip browsing and low trip browsing. So obviously travelers may be staying in different locations. If you are marketing a hotel, you want to have high hotel intent. If you are marketing an outdoor camping experience, low hotel might be more useful. A level of consideration is a great indication of people's willingness, not just to consider the destination, but also to convert further down the line for things like activities and events. Generally, travelers who do their research are willing to know more about things like attractions as well. So even at the top end with things like flight consideration, that's really useful for those of you that are marketing activities further down the line. Purpose is a really interesting one as well. Some of you out there might be promoting executive trips, in which case business travelers will be of interest to you. Leisure travelers and luxury travelers as well is a really useful segment for those of you marketing more high-end solutions. Potentially, business and luxury travelers are usually looking at more expensive attractions, accommodation, and flights, whereas I would say budget travelers obviously are looking to sort of spend less on each of those. Motives do differ though, and we will take into account the particular trip that they're researching as well as their historical travel kind of behavior. The last thing to think about is traveler by type: budget travelers, family travelers, deal seekers. Family travelers, by the way, is anyone who takes 3 or more people on a trip with them. That also plays into the types of things that we might be marketing. So if you're marketing for theme parks and amusement parks, family travelers are a really good one. Deal seekers and budget travelers, you may want to switch up the messaging, for example, to reflect a particular promotion that we have on, anything like that. This is one that I would recommend to anyone. It's the Adara Travel Value Score. It's a composite metric, as I've said, that assesses a customer's previous travel behavior and essentially ranks them on a score. We have the basic ranking, which is anyone who makes 2 to 3 trips per year. they generally spend up to about 5,000 euros per year on travel. They don't generally have loyalty status, so they're not subscribed or have memberships with any particular hotel chains or airlines. And generally, the research for this type of audience is done through online travel agencies. That should be familiar for those of you that are in the online travel agency area. You'll know that that's generally the market who come to you. The mid-tier is then people who make between 1 and 2 trips a month. They're generally spending up to about 20,000 euros per year on their travel. They will have at least one sort of subscription or membership usually, and their research is generally split between online travel agencies and then direct with suppliers as well. Generally because I think they've got a little bit more budget, so sometimes they might be looking for a more customized solution by speaking to the provider directly. The last one is the elite scoring. This is people who make several trips every month, spend upwards of 50,000 euros per year, have a number of different loyalty statuses and subscriptions, and generally this audience book direct with providers, hotel chains, things like that. So their online footprint can be a little bit smaller when they're elite in terms of each individual trip, but more extensive because they're making so many trips. There's different levels of information that we can get from each and different messaging that we provide here or suggest here. We also have outside of Adara a number of third-party data providers too. So you can see on the right here, we've got Lotame, IOTA, Experian, and MasterCard. These are really useful for identifying anyone from luxury travelers right the way through to family and budget travelers. They give you insights into travel intent, into travel interest, into historical buying habits, particularly through things like MasterCard and Experian. Lifestyle can be a really important factor here, as can destination and then demographics for those of you that are interested in, for example, household income before targeting a particular audience. Okay. With that covered off, I'm going to move to Lily to cover measuring ad performance.
Thanks, Kane. Now we're going to look at impact and measurement and explore the tools and tactics that StackAdapt offers here. So travel impact measurement is a fantastic tool that allows you to measure travelers' intent and translate their behaviors. So StackAdapt partners with Adara, as Kane mentioned, who are a rate gain company and are one of the world's largest data exchange platforms, providing access to ethically sourced travel intent data. Using Adara's data insights, we're able to bucket users and make educated conclusions about when they will be traveling, where they'll be staying, and for how long. We can extrapolate whether they engaged with your ads and even visited your website, giving you access to extremely valuable data. This can then inform your strategy and plans, ensuring you're talking to the right audience in the right way, which is really, really powerful. So after campaign exposure, we can measure the impact, and we refer to this as foot traffic measurement. This is powered by our partnership with AdSquare and LifeSite. So how does this work? 3 ways really. Providers map out a list of locations that an advertiser wishes to measure visitation to. Then device level data is tracked in the foreground and background to see who visited a particular location. And then thirdly, impression level data is tied to the device level visitation. So either through a pixel implementation with LifeSite or in-house measurement with AdSquare. And this is all in order to assess if the visits were attributed to StackAdapt, to the StackAdapt campaign. All of this rich data then allows you to follow the performance, which is really key. You have the information that allows you to understand the return on investment on a granular level, like how your advertising results in offline visits. You can discover valuable insights about your customer from your audience attributes to visitation patterns. And then lastly, you can optimize your campaigns in flight by assessing which creatives, bid strategies, and other tactics drive the most store visits. Handing back over to you, Kane, now to go through measuring travel lift.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Yeah, so travel lift is a way to assess the impact that you've had on a particular audience, and to demonstrate that this is really good for those of you that are running awareness campaigns and are regularly quizzed on, okay, what have we actually achieved here when you don't have a booking metric. There's a couple that we can look at here. So destination favorability lift is a really interesting one. This allows us to assess, for example, destination recall. So how much are your audience able to recount the particular destination and know more about it? Destination awareness, destination reach, so how much scope did we achieve? Destination top of mind awareness, so has their impression of that particular destination improved? And that kind of links to destination favorability as well. You then have the second stage, which is travel consideration lift. So this, rather than looking at their opinion of the particular destination, is looking at, are they generally considering travel there? This might mean, what do they associate this destination with? How familiar and comfortable do they feel with it? Would they consider going there within the next 6 to 12 months? Have they actually started considering travel themselves? Do they feel positively towards it? And do they have intent to travel short term? The last one is then booking intent lift. This is looking at, are they now more likely to book a particular flight, a particular hotel? Are they more likely to recommend a particular space to someone they know is traveling? Or we can look more intently at, how is their preference? How do you now stack up against competitors compared to how you stacked up at the beginning of the campaign? In order to look at these, I think it's really important to plan ahead and know your desired KPIs. So at the research stage, generally we want to be thinking about, this aligns with those challenges we talked about before about general awareness. Here we want to be looking at things like ad reach, looking like the top of mind awareness that we've achieved and those favorability metrics that we discussed. The planning stage, where we're much more interested in building affinity and getting people to consider purchasing with you, is where we'll then look at things like favorability, ability to recall, their positive associations, their likelihood to recommend. And then right at the bottom at the booking stage, that's where we'll look at things like visitation to intent in the short term. They're looking at their likelihood to book and then also looking at how you stack up against competitors right at the last crunch moment. Now, there's a number of different formats that we can serve for this. StackAdapt has a creative studio in-house who are happy to support with the building of these kind of particular types. But as you can see here, we generally go brand light with these sort of lift campaigns. The idea here is we don't want to sway the results in one particular direction by leaning too heavily on branding. Instead, we want kind of an impartial understanding of how that person's interest or response to a particular destination, location, or event is kind of improved. We have a couple here like yes, no, not sure surveys. We also have ranking from very likely to very unlikely with a not sure option, drop down options, and then also image and sort of more visual versions as well. This gives you access to real-time insights about your audience. It also allows us to make mid-flight optimization. So we generally advise running this, relatively soon into a campaign once there's a decent audience to promote it to, so that we can keep improving and, fine-tuning the performance that we have out there. We can also create retargeting pools based on these to further drive that optimization. So if we're getting a lot of responses that people are very likely or likely to convert, we then want to put them into a high intent retargeting pool. Maybe at this stage, we're willing to spend a little bit more to get in front of those audiences because we're relatively confident they're going to convert in the short term and improve the bottom line. At the bottom end, people who say not sure, we're aware that we haven't yet done our job in terms of awareness. So maybe we could put them into an awareness retargeting pool where we put some top of funnel, messaging out there, trying to set that inspiration with the client. Those that are in the unlikely, very unlikely, would maybe go into a low intent retargeting pool where we don't want to prioritize budget as much, but we still want to make sure we're keeping them churning and keeping them moving through the process. Okay, with that in mind, Lily, it's over to you for visitation measurement.
So travel impact measurement is a fantastic tool that allows you to measure travelers' intent and translate their behaviors. StackAdapt partners with Ardara in this.
So here we can essentially enhance our travel campaigns beyond metrics just like reach, frequency, and CPM, and instead look at, are we able to attribute visitation? Are we able to understand the journey that someone's gone on to get to that particular location and apply those insights to ongoing campaigns based on people's actual movements throughout the campaign? How it works here is we go through 3 stages. So the first is data collection. A user is exposed to campaign and then visits a destination. We can then track that back using a number of different data collection partners to kind of align with the campaign that we've run internally. We then use that collected data to analyze how that kind of journey went. So how the ad exposed led them to visit that particular destination. That might mean looking at the location of origin for the users, looking at other locations they visited en route or other online behaviors, to essentially map the relatively big gap in online footprint between the initial impression and site visitation or location visitation. We'll then deliver that in the form of a report. It all gets put into a presentable slide format with accompanying charts just to help visualize the impacts that different creatives and different messages had on visitation. This is really good for those of you that might be marketing for a broad location, or for those of you that might be marketing, say, a domestic attraction like a theme park, trying to get local people to visit. This is a really good one for understanding where have they come from, what kind of decisions led them to get to that particular destination visitation. Okay, now I am definitely handing over to Lily for the wrap up. So I'll hand back to you, Lily.
Brilliant. So here's just a wrap up of what we've covered today. So we started off with how we can make data informed targeting decisions. We looked at travel industry trends. Then we looked at segmenting your audience accordingly and how you can speak to them in a personalized way that's really relevant to their behaviors. And then we also looked at timing and how you can use all of these insights to ensure you're talking to the right people at the right time in the right way.
Yeah. After that, we looked at leveraging travel intent. So basically looking at different audience types that would allow you to run your programmatic campaigns. The goal of these was to create multi-channel campaigns that had a series of different data points and different influences to test different audiences, again, to keep backing up that idea of reaching the right audience at the right time with the right message. This included things like the type of travel that they are, or the type of traveler that they are, the budgets that they have, their historical purchasing, and then also their online footprint in terms of context and research.
And then lastly, we covered how you can measure the outcomes of your campaign through impact measurements, travel lift studies to determine the outcome of your campaign flights.
Arda, I think that might be back to you for the Q&A.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you, Kane and Lily, so much. We would now like to jump into the Q&A portion of the webinar and open up the floor to any question. As a reminder, if you have any questions, please place them in the questions box of the GoToWebinar panel. There are several questions coming through already, so just a heads up, if you're not able to get to yours today, not to worry, we'll follow up directly with you after the webinar. So the first question we have is, how long does it take to set up a travel lift? Are there any minimums?
Thanks, Arda. I'll take this one. So the process for this is the StackAdapt Creative Studio team will generally, they will generate your creatives based on your selections, and this can take 2 to 4 business working days. So what you'd need to do is choose your campaign goal, identify a study goal that is aligned with your awareness campaign objectives. Then you'd need to choose a question. So this question will vary depending on what you want to measure. And then you'd need to choose a design. As Kane mentioned earlier when he was going through the slides, we keep branding neutral so that we avoid any bias and so that the audience can answer as honestly as possible. And then something to note here is then you can build out retargeting pools, and you can also use lookalikes and so on.
Thank you, Lily. Another question that we have is, how does Adara get this data?
Yeah, that sounds like a question for me. I saw this come up a couple of times actually. So Adara has first-party deterministic data from over 300 different publishers and online websites. Some of those will be familiar brands like Kayak, Ticketmaster, National Rail and National Express for those of you in the UK. But then there's also a whole host of different hotel and airline providers as well. And it takes all that first-party data and sort of compiles it together to create unique profiles. This data can then be built into those sort of 2.1 billion digital identities that we mentioned earlier, so that you can leverage them to fuel your campaigns essentially. They're based in over 130 countries as well, those particular profiles. So depending on where you want to target, more than happy to kind of give you an idea of scale with those locations.
Thank you, Kane. Another interesting question we got is that, have you got this market data for in-US travelers?
So it depends if you mean people who are looking to travel to the US or if you mean people in the US. In terms of US travel intent, absolutely. So the Adara audiences, we're happy to run custom ones for any particular geo. Obviously, this particular webinar was focused quite heavily on EMEA. But yeah, if you do want us to follow up with more info about people looking to travel in the US or travelers within the US, more than happy to follow up from there.
Thanks, Kane. We also have a question around, can you explain how the visitation lift is measured and attributed back to a particular campaign?
I'll take this one. So this works in 3 steps, plan, tag, and run. So in the planning stage, you identify your goals and provide us with all those details. And then in the tag stage, what we can do is tag creatives with an Adara pixel. We can then attribute StackAdapt for conversions and follow travelers' journey. And you can monitor the results on a dashboard that's refreshed daily. And whilst you're running your campaign, we can make in-flight optimizations. We'll follow the performance. For example, if one creative is outperforming or doing particularly well, we can plug more budget in there and inform the strategy as the campaign evolves.
Thank you. Another question, are Adara audiences and insights freely available within the platform, or will we need to work with Adara and StackAdapt directly to launch them?
Good question. So they're not pre-populated in the StackAdapt platform. They are done on request, and that's because they're all custom built. So depending on the particular type of audience, you can intersect that with destination intent, for example. But you don't need to deal with Adara directly. Just speak to your StackAdapt representative, or if you don't have one, more than happy to shoot you an email or make an inquiry to us. But yeah, essentially we request the custom segments from Adara, and they'll take a few days to populate in your StackAdapt account. It can take up to 7 working days for it to populate. But yeah, essentially it's done on a request system. So reach out to a representative and we'll get that sorted for you.
Thanks, Kane. And one more question. What kind of approach would you recommend for a company not promoting one particular location, for example, a travel agency?
Okay, yeah, I can take that one. So I think a lot of the solutions we covered today are for promoting a particular location or a destination. So I appreciate that's not entirely relevant for you. I think the first step there would be to understand really what your ideal customer looks like. So if it's not a particular destination, what makes them stand out? Are they a particular type of traveler? Do they generally spend less or spend more? Are they a traveler who might have a particular set of interests or a particular kind of historical purchasing? Or maybe are they a particular type of traveler, like you only run family campaigns, for example? We can then translate those into a number of different kind of traveler types. Maybe contextual audiences would be really relevant if you're marketing a particular type of solution. And then essentially travel value score is always going to be useful for someone in your position. I've been working on a couple of travel agencies at the moment who aren't marketing a destination, and yeah, travel value score is the one that does really well. It's generally better used if you know kind of where you are in the market and where you price compared to competitors though. If you do want any further insights into that, your StackAdapt representative will be more than happy to sort of suggest particular strategies for you, particularly if you've got a certain niche, cruises, for example. There's a separate Adara type of audience that we can use for that if we needed to.
Thank you, Kane. Amazing. So thank you so much once again, Kane and Lily. That concludes today's webinar. I would like to thank you all for attending today. We hope you find it both informative and insightful. We will be sending out a follow-up email with the recording to all registrants. Please don't hesitate to reach out with any other questions you may have. And thanks again for joining us, everyone. And please enjoy the rest of your day.